Hey, Rexpert fans, this is Eric Rush. Me and Dez are going on a little road trip to do some inspections, and I just had an opportunity to throw together a little video on some of the things that we find when we're out there doing inspections. One of the biggest things, of course, is going to be damaged uprights. If you have any uprights in your building that are this bad or worse, you really should take a look at replacing them just as soon as possible. This is like having a bad knee. If somebody pushes you and you got a bad knee, what's going to happen? You're falling down. If pallet rack falls down, people get hurt and could potentially die, and along with losing a whole lot of inventory and lost business and potentially lost insurance. And you're definitely going to get one visit from one of those O people, which is OSHA or my OSHA or somebody like that. And it's not going to be a good time. Replacing the uprights, definitely way cheaper. One of the other things that we find is missing lock pins. Now, as long as gravity doesn't fail, this isn't a big deal, right? Well, I'm going to tell you, one of the first things that happens when somebody's not paying attention is gravity does fail. What I mean by that is a forklift picks up a load underneath this beam and pops that beam up out of place. And you'll see here in a bit, another picture here in a second. What happens is that the beam becomes dislodged from the upright, which causes a huge hazard because now it looks like it's connected, but once it's significantly loaded, now it will come loose. Now you definitely have things coming down, and you know as well as I do that never happens down on the lower levels where people can see what's really going on. It happens at the upper levels where they can't see. That's why they hit the beam. That's why they don't see that it happens. That's why it gets half connected, which is a real hazard. So one of the best things you could possibly teach people how to do in your warehouse when they're running a forklift is learn how to take 1001, 1002 to look at both ends of the beams before they put things away to make sure that it's not one step away from falling out of the sky. The next thing we find is we find uprights that are not anchored. Anything that is over 8 foot, according to the experts, is supposed to be anchored down. And when it comes down to my OSHA, and if you have a disaster, a lawyer, and a engineer that is a expert witness, if it's not anchored down, you have no chance of winning a neglect situation. Another situation that happens is you end up with hardware that's loose. Sometimes people don't put things together right. Sometimes it vibrates loose. If the stuff is not bolted together, especially the racking where they rely on one bolt. No, there's not a bolt missing. This is a design that I've never really been a fan of, but a lot of people use it and it holds up a lot of stuff. So it is what it is. But if it's loose, you have no chance of winning, of having a reliable system that you know is going to be safe for your team. Here is the dislodged beam that I was talking about, where it got lifted up on the one end, and then the top of the beam caught. A lot of times what'll happen is that the wire deck wraps around the beam, so when the beam gets lifted up, the decking will hold the beam in place so it'll still snap back in. But because there's a load on it, it rotates the beam out like that, which makes it so that it doesn't seat all the way. One more good lift on that, and it's going to pop right out and come to the floor in a big hurry. Another thing we find is unapproved repair jobs. You can tell that on this one, they only weld the bottom of it, and the roll formed material is starting to wrinkle. That is one step away from it going whoop and coming right down on the ground, and it is not going to be a pretty sight when it happens. Another thing we find is guarding that's not installed correctly. Those are supposed to go all the way around the upright. There is a tool that is supposed to go like this and open that up so that you can put it on all the way. Or a train installer with a pro bar can get it on there no problem. So one of the crazy things that I'm finding is I never thought that the 1,800 projects that I installed over the 30 some years that I was doing rack installations would be the absolute best training ground on the planet in order to see things that were not installed correctly. And it's amazing how quickly I catch stuff. I'm no better than anybody else. I've just had more practice than most. That's why it's very important to hire an expert to do your rack inspection for you, or at least have an expert that you're partnered with so that they can help you do an annual and look for things that you may be missing, unless you would prefer to go spend 30 years doing installation work to get the same level of expertise. Just saying. Another thing that I find a lot of is post protectors that are not anchored to the floor. People, they put all those holes in those post protectors for a reason. Put an anchor in every one of the holes. And another thing that we find is that post protectors that got put in place that were tight once upon a time, that because a forklift has so much force and these post protectors have so much leverage, now what happens is they wiggle because they're not tight. Once those wiggle a little bit more, and here I'll start it for you again. Once those wiggle a little bit more, what's going to happen is it's going to keep wiggling and it's going to keep wiggling and it's going to keep wiggling. And before long, that post protector is going to lean right into the, all the way into the upright. So if you've got post protectors in your facility, one of the smartest things you could do would be to have somebody run through with a large 1/2 inch drive at least, significantly sized battery, or even better yet, a corded impact, and put an impact on every one of those anchors and do like a 1, 2, 3 count on those anchors. When you tighten them, you'll be able to hear the sound of the impact change when it's as tight as it's ever going to be. So, folks, that's just some stuff that I have found that makes a huge difference in the safety of a rack system. And let me get my, oh my, I'm just not ending this well here in my, let's just end the share. Oh, hang with me here, folks. I'm sorry. Just because I'm a good installer and rack expert does not mean that I necessarily have a clue on how to run a computer. There we go. Anyway, guys, think about this. If you were going to have brain surgery, would you watch YouTube videos to figure out how to do it for yourself? No. You'd hire somebody that had some experience. You're thinking pallet rack is pretty simple. I ought to be able to figure it out on my own, right? Well, yeah, you'd like to think so. But you know what? Again, 30 years of experience inspecting installations, and I see new stuff every time I go out there. It's amazing how something so simple can continue to be educational even after 1,800 opportunities to practice. Use the link on the bottom of this email to be able to connect with me today. 15-minute conversation. We'll find out if this is something that I can help you or whether you already got it all under control. We'll talk to you soon, I hope. Have a great day.